What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. I am your host, Frankie D'Astoli. We're back. We are so back. I am locked back into the studio, and I hope that nothing comes and absolutely, destroys my momentum with this. But I'm excited to be back. I know it's been kind of an awkward month. It's just been a lot going on, especially with the new addition to my family with my son, Francis Joseph. It's just been very, very busy wrapping up Q1 with D&D Equities. It's been very, very busy getting, the first and the second event of Rosary and Real Estate out there. So we've had a lot going on. And in truth, the Frankie D'Astoli Show just unfortunately was one of those things that fell a little bit to the back burner. But I mainly put it on just the fact that, I got a fourth member in the house now. My son's in the house. And it's just been hard. It's been challenging. No lie about it. We got 2 under 2, my wife, Christina, and I. So, it's been an adjustment for sure. And it's been an absolute blessing. He is awesome. He's got these very, very nice kind of at this moment gray eyes, and we're waiting to see what color they turn. And he's growing great. He's becoming an absolute unit. I'm loving it. I'm excited to get him into the morning workout routine with dad. And it's been great. So I'm very, very blessed. My wife and I were very, very blessed. He is a bit colic. If I'm going to be totally upfront and honest with you guys, he's a bit colic. He does like to cry a lot sometimes. But I call him my Lent champion because he gets through some distressful moments, and he's uniting himself with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ as he's going through that distress. And he is becoming a champion of Lent in his first kind of month of life. So, and I can't believe it's been a month already. I mean, the kid's already about 5 weeks old, and it's just been, like I said, a blessing. It really is to have my daughter the way that she loves her little brother. She gives him all the hugs and kisses, and it's been great. And it's been great for us as parents as well because, like I said, we have 2 under 2. I'm not sitting here and saying that it's easy. If anybody that's listening has 2 under 2, you probably could attest. It's not, but it's a great opportunity for us as parents to grow in the virtues of patience, to grow in the virtues of perseverance, and a bunch of other, attributes as well. So we try to offer all of these things up when times get tough. But at the end of the day, it is such a gift to have children. And I highly, highly encourage everyone to have as many children as you can, because I am very, very blessed with 2. I don't plan on stopping here, but of course we put it in God's hands to see as many as he wants to give us. But it is awesome to watch them grow up. And again, as he's so young, there's not a ton that you could really do. Tummy time is like probably the pinnacle of the day. Maybe the, kind of black and white flashcards that you put in front of the kids, that could get occasionally fun as well. But I think overall, just the bonding itself, rocking them to sleep, doing all of that stuff. And you kind of sometimes forget how special these moments are. And like when I see my daughter Bernadette growing up right now, it's definitely one of those things where I'm just like, man, she's growing so fast. So you try to cherish these moments as much as you can. And like I said, go out and have children. But it's been awesome. It's been a great Lent. And on that note, talking about my son being a Lent champion, I hope that you guys are having a great Lent. We are less than 2 weeks away from Easter. And if you are like me and you've had a pretty good Lent overall, I want to encourage you to double down on these last 2 weeks and really emphasize the suffering portion of Lent here. Really emphasize the uniting yourself with Jesus Christ and go that step deeper. And I'll be totally honest with you, I fell off yesterday. I had my family over. My sister was visiting from Kentucky. And I am doing something I'm doing during Lent is I'm fasting every single day until 3:00, except on Sundays. Sundays I take those as the holy day, and I'll eat my usual meals. But I'm fasting every single day at 3:00. And yesterday I fell off a little bit. I snacked on some Tostitos and guac around 12:00, and I was just like, man, like I could be better. And I think all of us, whether you are doing some fasting, whether you're doing some prayer, whether you're doing some abstinence from certain things, double down. Last 2 weeks, make it count. Be intentional so that Easter Sunday you could feast from the fasting. That's how it should be. It should be this moment, these 40 days that we're called to, especially now with these last 2 weeks and Holy Week coming up. Really, really get intentional, get aggressive, do it the Catholic way. If somebody says, oh, let's go out to a steakhouse on Friday, you say, no, it's Lent. I'm Catholic. This is what we're doing. and we're going to do this. And for Fridays and in general, just throughout the year, I think we should fast from meat. But for Lent, that's what we're doing, right? If you gave up alcohol and it's Saturday and, March Madness is going on, baseball's back, all these things, and your friends want to grab some beers, nope, I'm Catholic. It's Lent. This is what we're doing. And that's the mentality. Let's keep it for these last 14 days. And on the Lent, I'm going to talk a little bit about my show sponsor today before we get into the topic, which I'm super excited about. It's a real estate topic. But the show sponsor today is Spiritual Warriors Couture. And why I love Spiritual Warriors Couture is because they have phenomenal clothing and gear on their website. It's top quality. At the last Rosary and Real Estate event this past March, we gave away a couple things from Spiritual Warriors Couture. One of them being their duffel bag, their St. Joseph duffel bag that rolls out into a garment bag. Absolute top quality material. The winner of the giveaway was super ecstatic about that. When he saw it rolled out to the garment bag, he was going nuts. But Spiritual Warriors Couture, go on their website, use the code Frankie10 for 10% off on your order. And I think Spiritual Warriors Couture is an excellent site, especially for right now, because Lent, we are in a spiritual battle. We are in a spiritual battle, defending ourselves, fighting against temptation from the devil to push through these 40 days of Lent to get into the Easter Sunday feast with our Lord and Savior. So Spiritual Warriors Couture, great show sponsor. Appreciate you. Use the code Frankie10 for 10% off. Let's get into it. So I'm hyped for this episode because this episode, we are going to be covering 7 potential reasons as to why you are not buying your first or your next real estate deal, why you are not pushing the envelope and going deeper. We're going to go over 7 reasons potentially why you're not doing that, right? Let me just put my phone on silent before we continue on this episode here. So as I go through this 7, it's very possible that one of these absolutely speaks to you. It's very possible that a few of them speak to you, or it's very possible that none of it speaks to you. But I think ultimately, whether you don't even have your first deal or whether you're scaling a portfolio at some point in your career, your real estate investing journey, you're going to hit one of these moments. And it could be a shift in the market. It could be a shift in strategy. It could be just kind of some time passes before you buy your next deal, and then you're kind of getting back into it. You're trying to get back in the swing of it. So some of these might relate to you, some of them might not. But as I was reflecting on this last night, I was saying these are the 5, and then I thought of 2 more today, that these are potentially 7 reasons. And my goal today is to, present those reasons, and then to talk about how you could get past those reasons to get forward in your real estate journey. So the first one, which I think is one of the most common ones that people don't really realize, it flies a little under the radar, is lack of clarity. And I'll give you an example. I have a couple that joined D'Astoli's Dojo mentorship program, and they came in and they have a couple properties, and they pretty much, we do our intro call. And on that first call, I asked them to give me all of their goals, give me their, 5 to 10 year plan, their 3-year plan, and their 1-year target, and what that kind of looks like in regards to what they want to accomplish. And like many other real estate investors that I've spoken to, they came in with a lot of goals and a lot of different variety, right? We have a triplex right now, and we kind of want to do something that excites us a little bit. So we're thinking about maybe doing another Airbnb because we have one already and we like the way it's going. But we're also kind of thinking about maybe doing a laundromat. We heard your episode with Justin Eaton, or we're thinking about doing, an apartment complex. And it's the variety of options here only causes confusion and doesn't allow you to really pursue just one strategy, right? And I love reading Jocko Willink because he talks something that I really emphasize throughout all of my, companies and businesses. He talks about prioritizing and executing. And when you are looking for that clarity, if you have a bunch of different balls in the air, you're going to be jaded. You're not really going to be able to know what it is that you're looking to accomplish and what's going to make the most sense. So I think one of the biggest reasons why investors don't pursue is because of that lack of clarity. They kind of have almost like shiny object syndrome, I think is what that's called, when they just see all these different exit strategies, these different investment strategies, and they're kind of unsure what to choose. And then they end up never picking one in general. And what you want to understand is you do not need to go with one strategy for the entirety of your life, right? And I'll give you a personal example right now. I started in wholesaling. That was my strategy. I focused on that strategy for 3 years. I then transitioned to BRRRR. I've been burring for 1 year now. I've done 9 full burrs in this past 1 year. I have 3 more refinances set for this month. It's been a total focus on burr. Steve, my partner, and I, we just bought our first potential flip on April 1st. It was a property. We might burr out of it if it doesn't go the way that we want for flipping purposes, but we're going to try to flip that house. We have plans by the end of the year to try to focus on getting our first laundromat. So the reason that what I'm trying to say here is this isn't I'm going to be a flipper and that's my identity for the rest of my life, right? It is get your clarity on what is the first step. What is the first property that I want to buy and why do I want to buy that property, right? Do I want to buy a flip because at this current moment, I don't think I'm going to want to deal with tenants? Cool. Let's focus on a flip. Let's not get attached to a short-term Airbnb or get an idea of possibly buying a laundromat or a barbershop or some other, Main Street, business. Focus on that one. Get super, super clear on what you're going to do there. And then I want you to think about, what is my 5-year plan, right? What do I want my life to look like in 5 years? If I want my life to look like this in 5 years, what do I need to do to get there? And then what would my life look like in 3 years? If I'm building towards that life in 5 years, right? And that life in 5 years might be financial freedom through real estate, living in my dream home with my wife and, my 3 kids. Cool. In 3 years, if I want to get there, let's put at that 5-year mark, let's put a little bit of a number attached to it, right? How much money do I need to be making every single month to get to that point? Cool. Now, how am I going to build that out? I start building out my 3-year from there. Cool. In 3 years, if I know that I need to make $20,000 a month at that 5-year month, right? In 3 years, I want to at least be at, $8,000 a month in passive income through real estate. Cool. Now, what about my 1 year? All right. Now I know my 1 year, this year, I want to get to $5,000 a month in passive through real estate. Now, how do I do that? And breaking it down by quarter. And that's the clarity that you want to start to get to. But if you are in the mindset of, I think I might want to flip a house or I might want to, do an apartment syndication deal, you're not going to ever get to that point. And again, like I said, you could always pivot. When Steve and I come up with our, 5-year goal, a lot of it revolves around burr. But here we are, as we're moving through, we're like, cool, we've been burned really great. We know what we're doing now. Can we sprinkle in some other stuff to A, keep it a little spicy because we like to mix things up, but B, also because now we have the foundation, right? We've done this. We know we can continue to do this. Do we want to test some waters and some other stuff, see if there's any other opportunities there? And if not, cool, we come back to what we know. But you got to get clear. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people don't take that next step is that lack of clarity. So get clear. Understand what you want to pursue next. The second one, you're not in the right market. And what I mean by this is I hear a lot of people, I get this probably every week. I get people saying to me, I just can't find any deals. I can't find any deals. I have to be the bearer of bad news with some of this stuff. Where you live doesn't always make for the best investing market for you. Now, in some cases it can, right? If you live in a great area, it's a great, strong rental market, you might be able to find yourself a rental deal. That's great. But the realities are there's probably a lot of other people that are in that market looking for rental deals also. So you have some competition, which is fine. But there you might be kind of like, hey, I live in, Cleveland, Ohio. It's a great rental market over here, but I want to be an Airbnb guy. Right. And maybe Cleveland, I don't know much about Cleveland. I know it's a good rental market. That's why I picked it. But maybe Cleveland doesn't have a ton of tourist attraction where it's bringing in a lot of opportunity for short-term rentals, or it doesn't have the scenery or whatever it might be. So you might need to pivot and you might need to go to other markets. Right. Or maybe you live in, an area that's a really good pride of ownership area and you want to buy rental properties and there's just not really a big demand for rentals. Right. So you have to pivot and you have to go somewhere else. Or maybe somewhat similar to my situation and similar to my boy, Josh Wollaston, who I had on the show, whose podcast that one's going to be dropping in a week or so, where you want to scale a portfolio, right? You want to buy a lot of properties at a clip, right? 5, 10, 15 units, 20 units a year, a month would be fantastic, a year. And the volume in your market just isn't there. You need to go and find another market. And you might be saying, like, how do I do that? How do I go find? Well, first, there's the first level is just figuring out the data behind certain markets, right? So the beautiful thing that you have to your advantage if you invest in your market is you live there, right? You know what's going on. You see where there's development. You know the blocks. You know the neighborhoods. You know who likes to live in what areas, where the main street is, what kind of attractions there are. You have all of that at your disposal. When you don't live in the area, you need to go find that stuff out. And one of the easiest ways to find this stuff out, guys, is to just kind of see where the tide is going, right? Go on Facebook and join some of these like Facebook groups of like, Indianapolis buy houses or, rentals in, Pittsburgh, PA or whatever it is. Join some of these Facebook groups. Look up stuff on Google, just in regards to like, where's population going? Where has been the strongest, if you want to get in the rental business, where's been the strongest rental, income, properties in the United States, things along these lines. This is all first level, first line of defense research that you could start doing. And then to take it a step further is to go in the market. And here's a beautiful thing. Again, I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney, so don't take any of this legally and take it necessarily to take, actual strategies for. But if you have an LLC and you travel to a market to look at properties, you can write off that entire trip, right? There's ways to deduct all of that stuff. So you want to start after you kind of do that, ground level research, go in those markets and see what it is. I remember when I was working my old job, they flew me into Memphis a handful of times. I was opening up a new market in Memphis. And Memphis is still one of those markets today. I live in New Jersey. Memphis is one of those markets today where if I was to invest further out from where I already invest and I was to go out, passing a couple of states at this point, I would look to Memphis because Memphis has a low barrier to entry. They have strong rental comps. It's a strong rental market. There's a great blue collar base there. You got FedEx over there. That's one of those markets where me being there a couple of times has given me the confidence at this point. If someone were to bring me a deal and be like, yo, I got a great deal in Memphis, I would be significantly more attracted to looking at that deal because I've been in that market. I know it. Do I own any property in Memphis? No. But I've been there. I know the market a little bit to a point where I'm willing to at least entertain some deals there. And if I get something under contract, go fly out there and take a look at it. And then there's that second tier to it, right? Where you're going to have to start building out a team. And there's a ton of books that talks about this. The ABCs of real estate investing. I've recommended this book a handful of times by Ken McElroy. He talks a lot about this stuff, about going to markets that you don't live in and building a team there. And when you go, like, and I'm using Memphis as an example. Let's just say you were like, oh, wow, I've done some additional research here. Memphis looks like it could be a good market that fits my strategy. I'm going to go fly out to Memphis or drive out to Memphis, whatever you end up doing. And I'm going to go tour some properties. And I'm going to meet with 5 real estate agents while I'm out there. I'm going to meet with 2 or 3 property managers while I'm out there. I'm going to try to get some contacts on some contractors. And I'm going to start putting together my base level team here, my lineup, so that when one of these agents sends me a deal, I know that I have an agent and a contractor who can go walk that property, give me an idea on the scope of work, give me an idea, excuse me, give me an idea on the property comps through the real estate agent, and I could talk to my property manager about the rental area there. And I could have a team that's basically running this for me, and I am the operator. And again, guys, this might not be ideal for everybody. I understand that. It's not ideal for me. It's not ideal for a lot of people that are in this position. But when you get into real estate, this is sometimes the things you have to do. And this is maybe one of the only cons, one of the only leg ups for stocks that I could say about real estate investing is for stocks, all you need to do is that research. You don't need to go there. And you could buy a stock and you could make money off the stock. If you have to invest out of state or out of your neighborhood at the very least where it requires travel, you're going to have to go out there. All right, number 3, you're too conservative. I hear this all the time. I hear this all the time from investors. A lot of investors are like, man, and I wholesale. Keep in mind, I'm a wholesaler. That's how I started. So what do I hear from a lot of people when I send a deal out? These numbers don't make any sense. These numbers are too high, right? Man, you're asking way too much for this deal. Your scope of work isn't where it needs to be. Yet, I somehow always, not always, but majority of the time, moved those deals to an investor. And that investor, who I've kept tabs with, has pretty much every single time, at least that I'm aware of, has made money on those deals. So what does that tell you? It tells you that those people that are coming to me saying that your price is way too high, they're too conservative and they've lost money because of how conservative they're being. Yet other people are making money on these deals. And I think a lot of us fall into this boat. We try to hit the home runs when we're not focusing on sometimes, occasionally, not always, but occasionally getting that single. And if you are in that spot, that's okay. What I want you to know is, listen, if you are fine buying one deal a year, let's just call it, and you want that one deal to be a home run, it's okay to be very, very conservative. Even if you want to buy maybe one deal a quarter, that could work too. But if you want to scale, or if you want to get in the game and you want to buy that next deal and it's been too hard, and you've been trying to get it at that 70% ARV minus repairs, minus closing costs, minus holding costs, and you're not getting that deal, this could be a reason why, and it might be a sign that you need to up your numbers a little bit. Instead of 70%, you might have to do 75%. But if you're not comfortable with that, then to point two, you might have to pivot to another market. Number 4, you lack knowledge. This is one of the most common ones that I see. And this is why I love, not to plug my own stuff here, but when people join D'Astoli's Dojo, because most of the time they have no real estate knowledge, right? Or they have very bare minimum. They've read Bigger Pockets books, which is great. I'm not knocking that by any means. But a big reason why they don't get started is because they lack knowledge. Now, here's one of the beautiful things. This is an easy fix. The lack of knowledge is a very, very easy fix. However, there's 2 tiers to knowledge. There's book knowledge, and then there's actual investing, I have a property knowledge. There's a difference there. And I remember this personally when I bought my first house hack. I had a lot of book knowledge, right? I read the book on house hacking, the house hacking strategy. Craig Curlope, I think his name is. I've listened to, dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of Bigger Pockets podcasts. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've done all that stuff. When you buy that first deal and you actually get your hands on a renovation, it's a different story. You learn differently. There's a different learning curve there. Now, for the lack of knowledge on the front end, right? That book knowledge, that's a very, very easy overcome. If you are more so worried about the lack of knowledge on the back end, you're never going to achieve it until you buy that first deal. I hear this a lot too with like family members and friends and just people in real estate space that like kind of see the stuff that I have going on. And they're always like, I want to invest. But a lot of times that there's this gap there. A lot of people want to invest, but they don't know how to. And because of that, they're stopped. It's not that they don't have the money. It's not that they're not in the right market. It's not even that they don't have the clarity, right? They might know I want to buy a rental property. It's the lack of knowledge that's truly the stopper. It's the lack of picking up those books and reading them and saying, okay, hey, this is how I find a rental property. I learned this from, Brandon Turner's Investing with Little or No Money Down. This is how I, look at a renovation. I learned this from David Green's Burr book. This is how I put a team together. I learned this from Ken McElroy's ABCs of Real Estate. Once you have that knowledge, now if you have all those other pieces, you have the clarity, you have the money, you have the time, you have whatever it is, you're in the market. That's what's going to execute. So I think if you are feeling like you want to invest, but you don't really know how to, it's just that you lack that knowledge. And you should pick up those books and start reading. You should go to the networking events and start talking to people. You should go to conferences, right? You should do all of these things that build that knowledge. Because believe it or not, the clarity, the right market, being too conservative, those are harder things to change than the knowledge. The knowledge is very simple. All it requires is your attention. Give it your attention and you are going to have the knowledge and you're going to start investing in real estate. Number 5, you lack time. You do not have the time to actively look for deals, to invest in deals, to go out to properties, to do all of those things. Now, this one and the next one, which I'm going to get into, there is and I've kind of talked about this a little bit, there is a simple fix to something like this. And there's two ways to do this. Number 1 is you make the time. A lot of people say they don't have the time to do things. I didn't think I had a lot of times to do things either. And then I had a second kid and I realized, wow, I had a lot more time than I thought, right? And even before that, I thought I didn't have a lot of time to do it. And then I had a first kid, right? So all I'm trying to say with that example is you do have the time. And when it comes to things that you care about, you will find a way to make the time. And if you don't do that, then you might have to reevaluate the fact that you actually care about it, right? This goes so well with like discipline. If you set out a goal and you do not achieve the goal, you do not do the things needed. Let's just use working out as an example, right? You want to get in the best shape of your life for summertime because you're going to the, DJs in Belmar. If you are not in the gym every single day, you don't care as much for that. And if your excuse is you don't have the time, you still don't care enough, because you could always wake up earlier. You could always work out later. You could work out in between certain things you have going on. You will, if you care that much, you will find the time to do it. The same goes with investing for real estate. If you do not have the time, and I hear this from a lot of people that are really hard workers, they work a lot. What they know is trading the time for money. What they don't really understand is the aspect of when I stop trading time for money and I'm making money without spending time, that once that high hits of that and that it kind of clicks in your head, that's when usually they realize, well, I'm doing this wrong. And that's when the gears switch and they find that time that they're looking for to actually do those things. But because they haven't experienced it yet, they don't really realize what they're missing out on. And that's why they don't necessarily have the time. And that's not always true, right? I have family members, friends, people in real estate, all people around me that just genuinely are hard workers. They want to invest, but they don't have the time. And what they do is this second tier. They find people like myself who invest full time, who are in it full time, who do this, who eat it, who sleep it, who breathe it. They link up with people like me and they find a way to form a partnership. And what they usually can offer is money. And what I, or other people like myself, can usually offer is time. That could be the change. So you have two options. If you feel like you're not investing in real estate because you lack time, the two fixes to this problem is, one, you have to make the time and you have to determine, is this an absolute priority to you? Is this very, very important? And if it is, you will find a way to make the time. If you cannot do that, or you choose not to do that, then the second tier to that is to find somebody who has the time. And if you're going to find somebody who has the time, you need to bring something to the table, whether that's money, whether that's experience, because you could be an experienced real estate investor and now you just don't have the time. Maybe you've gotten into some other things, you've taken on some other business ventures, whatever the case might be, but you have to bring something to the table. And that brings me to point number 6. You lack money. And just as common as you lacking time, you lacking money, I hear that just as much. And I heard it. I was doing some outreach for Rosary and Real Estate. And I reached out to a handful of kids that I went to University of Delaware with, right? And kids that were usually, for the most part, are younger than me at this point. They graduated maybe in the last like 1 to 2 years. And I was doing some outreach. And I was saying, hey, I'm having a Rosary and Real Estate event. We're going to talk about real estate investing. We're going to talk about, building generational wealth, while at the same time, we're going to talk about the Rosary. We're going to talk about spiritual poverty, how to maintain it while you build generational wealth, X, Y, and Z, give them my whole speech. And I had a couple people reach back out, and some of them were like, hey, like, that's awesome. I can't make it, whatever the case might be. And a few of those people that were saying that also were kind of combining it with saying, like, I'm very interested in the event. I'm very interested specifically in real estate for this point. I just don't really have a lot of money right now, and I'm trying to save up to buy. That's what I'm hearing a lot of. And I think this is very common. And again, this is not a problem, right? Like, I bought my first house hack. I paid 3.5% down. I didn't go get a private loan from, a relative on that 3.5%, right? I saved the 3.5%, right? It was like $12,000 or whatever. Cool. I saved it up. I was working. I saved money. It is what it is. You do that, right? My first BRRRR, because of the fact that I had a HELOC pulled on that house hack, I was able to buy my first BRRRR. But if not, I was using a hard money loan, would have had to come to the table with 20%. I would have had to put that 20% down, right? I would have had to save up that money to do that. That's always a possibility. But there's other options here. If you are someone who's working paycheck to paycheck, which there's people out there, there's no doubt about it. I was in that position in my life for sure, right? You're working paycheck to paycheck. Does that mean that you are at a halt to buying real estate? If you believe that it is, sure. But like Robert Kiyosaki says, which I love quoting his stuff, you're either someone who says, I can't afford it, or how can I afford it? And when it comes to real estate investing, you always need to have the mentality of how can I afford it? And I'll give you guys an example. My partner, Steve, and I, we get it in nonsense all the time, right? Like every single day is a problem. At this point, I've said this through the dojo as well, like being in real estate, you're just a problem solver. Like that's really all you are to a high extent, right? And Steve and I, we face these problems all the time. And we're like, man, like we made a mistake here. We're going to owe an extra 10 grand. What do we do? Well, we might have to pay it out of our BRRRR. We're going to hit a BRRRR, this month. We're going to refinance this. We might have to pay it out of there. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, like we might have to, but I don't want to do that because that's a way that Steve and I make money for ourselves. So how else could we make this payment, right? What else could we do? Can we go find a loan somewhere and pay some interest on that, pay this off, and then find a way to pay that out? Or could we, cut back on some renovations, use some of the draw money to make this payment? Or could we, advance some of the rents from some of our tenants, give them a discount, get the advance so we could pay it now? There's all of these ways that you could think about how you can make a payment like that. And the same applies here. If you're saying, I can't buy real estate because I don't have the money, what you're saying is you can't afford it. You need to start saying, how can I afford it? And again, I'm not saying this like, oh, once you say that, you're going to be able to buy it. This is going to take pushing through some walls. It's going to take talking to people. It's going to take exactly what we were saying about how you might maybe have time, but you don't have the money. You might have to be that person that finds that other person that has the money but doesn't have the time. Because once you do that, now you've formed that partnership and you both bring something to the table. So if you're saying you lack money, first things first, you need to switch your mentality. You have to go from the I can't afford it to how can I afford it? Second, you need to go down that rabbit hole and say, is there a way for me to afford this? And down that rabbit hole is most likely going to lead you to the next point of, hey, well, I don't have the money, but I have X, Y, and Z. I have experience. I have time. I have contracting capabilities. I have acquisition capabilities. How do I find somebody who has the money, who doesn't have the time? And I could give them that. And the last one of the potential reasons why you're not buying your first or your next deal. This is very, very basic. You're too scared. You're too scared to get burned. And as much as I wish there was a cookie cutter way to kind of talk this through, at the end of the day, life rewards people who make uncomfortable decisions. Every single person who's invested in real estate, myself, my partner, Steve, anybody that you talk to, started with one deal. And that deal either went good, it went really, really good, or it sucked. But if we have a second deal, a third deal, a fourth deal, what it's telling you is that we didn't stop. You keep going, right? And if you are scared to get in because you're scared that you're going to buy a bomb, the knowledge aspect is one of your best friends. The mentorship aspect is one of your best friends. The networking aspect is one of your best friends, because those events, those people, those books, those podcasts, they are going to help you understand how to look at deals, what you should be, keeping an eye on, what makes a good deal, what makes a bad deal. And although it won't be 100% clear still, it's going to give you that confidence that's needed to at least get started. And again, guys, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes, if you make a mistake, it's going to lead to one of two things. It's either going to lead to you quitting and you feeling sorry for yourself, or it's going to lead to lessons. And in my opinion, when it leads to lessons and you take those lessons and you fix on those mistakes, it just builds a stronger foundation and you go further and further up the ladder. And eventually you reach a point where those mistakes are so far past you, you're making different types of mistakes, but you know how to take lessons out of them and continue down the path. So that's the recap of the 7. Number 1, lack of clarity. Number 2, you're not in the right market. Number 3, you're too conservative. Number 4, you lack knowledge. Number 5, you lack time. Number 6, you lack money. Or number 7, you're too scared. Get past those things that are blocking you. Understand what they are. Identify them. Solve them. Fix them. Get back in the game and get pushing forward. Pray the rosary. Buy real estate. Great first episode back. Thank you guys for listening. I'm looking forward to the next one. I will talk to you soon. Peace out.